We are going to continue our work within the framework of the Ukraine Crisis Media Forum. We take care of the briefings regarding the association agreement. 1 year later, how the reforms are making progress. The floor is given to Kachka, head of the Ukraine's Media Center of Reform. Good afternoon, colleagues. I believe that we have a very good coincidence in the dates. We are talking about the calendar. Recently, I joined to the project Ukraine Media Center Reform, and tomorrow we mark the anniversary of the date since signing the association agreement between Ukraine and European Union. Poroshenko signed in Brussels that agreement, and this is actually in the mark, or let's say, for the reform, and which is recognized by the represents the European Union and this country. That's why this is one of the most topical issues for the briefings. Today, we already started to see different analytical articles on this topic, and our objective is to explain how the situation develops, how this document is being implemented, how it is related to the general progress of reforms. First of all, I would like to know that the association agreement was signed on June 28, 2014. This is going to come into force after its complete ratification by all 28 member states of European Union. This is a rather lengthy process. You remember in September last year, synchronized ratification by the European Parliament of the Ukraine took place, which was one of the simplest ratifications. In some countries, ratification takes 7 or 8 votings, like in Belgium, especially it's true about federative countries. But we can see the unprecedented speed of ratification of this agreement. Today, only 3 countries are reluctant to do that, and we have to remember that the agreement about partnership and cooperation and Ukraine and the then Ukrainian Economic Society, they took about the ratification process about 4 years, and today we have, in fact, quite a normal expectations that all the 28 member states of the European Union will have ratified this agreement till the end of this year. This is unprecedented speed. Even the inter-European agreement ratification took 2 years, and this is another proof of the support given to Ukraine, not only by the European European Union, but also in all European countries. We had the news yesterday that the ratification process in France is reaching its logical end. So over this period, when we still ratification process is in progress, the agreement of association operates in the format of temporary application, so to say, and you know that it was repeatedly mentioned that this agreement operates in temporary format, and only sections regarding the free trade regime are partially working now, and they are speaking about special preferences given by European Union to Ukraine. As you know, the issue of trade is the subject of 3-partite consultation between European Union, Ukraine, and Russian Federation in order to find the mechanism of adjustment of the trade processes in the region, taking consideration that Ukraine is very much integrated with the markets of former USSR, specifically with especially with the Russian Federation. After all the member states, European Union ratified this agreement, all those issues of autonomous trade preferences and temporary nature will become nullified, and there will be no grounds for the further delay or for its ratification. I believe we have all the grounds to expect that in January next year, this agreement will become enforce 100%. All the addenda, all the protocols and what not to that agreement will be fully enforced. When we are talking what changed in our relations with the European Union over the last year, there are two big blocks. The first block is trade, because it's clear that trading issues is one of the cornerstones in our relationship with the European Union. In the second block or aspect, integration of Ukraine into the European Union, harmonization of legislation, etc., etc. All those things which bring closer Ukraine to the European Union. Speaking about trade, last year we had rather optimistic assessments. You remember, since the end of April 2014, Ukraine started to export its products in the format when we had no customs duty, according to the free trade agreement. Until the fall last year, we had a very substantial increase in the amount of export to the European Union, which took place not only through the let's say lifting of the customs duty, but some kind of the more interest shown in Ukraine in European Union. Unfortunately, this tendency was not preserved, and we have the first figures for the first 4 months of this year. Export to Ukraine towards European Union substantially decreased, but it decreased not only to the European Union but also to other our markets. That's why those figures should be evaluated or assessed from the point of view of general of the situation, economic situation inside Ukraine. And one of the basic reasons why we reduce our export to European Union is associated with security issues, because a lot of the capabilities oriented to export are talking about the steel plants, which are located now on the territory of ATO, terrorist organization, or in the adjacent territories to that zone. And of course, there are issues associated with the more complicated logistics and the possibilities to operate there. In some enterprises, we saw the situation that the change in the logistics for a big steel works is a huge project which takes a lot of time and resources. That's why we have such a decline in the volume of exports, even if we're talking about those enterprises which sometimes are forced to change their logistics. You're talking about the delivery of their products, produce. Same applies. Also, the export was impacted by the situation of hard currency in Ukraine. In order to improve the situation, banking situation in Ukraine, the National Bank of Ukraine actually introduced new rules regarding the international trade, which actually affected the dynamics of our trade, and there are some negative things which affected the general trends in the global markets. For example, in some items or agricultural produce which is exported, they were affected by the change in the global prices in this market. So this is really a very special year, and those big jumps or leaps from the increase to the abrupt decrease are understandable, because the Ukrainian economy just, generally speaking, changes its coordinates, the change in the currency coordinates, changes in the real production, etc., etc. Yeah, that's why we can come up with different assessment of those figures, but in fact, they are not indicative. The indicative is the change in the attitude or interest of the Ukrainian manufacturers to the markets where they plan to export their products. Me personally, my colleagues, we carried out a lot of different functions, and we continue to do that in different regions in Ukraine. We are dealing with different businesses, agricultural, industrial, from the sphere of services, big and small. there is a big interest and also in experience of cooperation in the European Union markets. Many of you heard about the examples of expert of some furniture design structures and some services. Some of franchises or Ukrainian franchises appear in European markets. Of course, the scope of those cannot replace or replace those volumes. We are talking about the agricultural produce of Ukraine or industrial produce. But anyway, we found the situation more and more simple for us to cooperate with the European Union. This is a good sign that the European Union market become the anchor one for the Ukrainian export. And over the next few years, we can say the European market would be number one market for the export market for the Ukrainian economy. And the last big block associated with the 1 year functioning of the agreement of association between Ukraine and EU is the link between the reforms which are implemented now. Here we have to say that, first of all, that a lot of reforms, many reforms have been implemented. The top priority reforms are like deregulation, agriculture, power sector. Very often they depend on the traditional export flows and the regulation. When we have big success in agriculture, for example, when they cancel a lot of permits, permissions and licenses, they simplify the access for the Ukrainian produce to the external markets, including the markets of the European Union, and those novelties which we can expect in the regulation, taking the power sector or the law on the gas market or electric power. They are based on the directives and regulations of the European Union and provisions of the association agreement. We witnessed a very interesting phenomenon when Ukraine, in the process of negotiations, was trying to get a more extended period for introducing technical norms and standards in the railroad, for example, transport. Ukraine actually managed to obtain 8-year period of time because this was supposed to be very difficult for implementing reforms. Today, the operators in the market, they talking that this period of time should be reduced to the period of 3 years, and today the Minister of Infrastructure presents the reforms in railroad in Ukraine based on the addendum to the agreement, the supplements to the agreement, and the rate, the tempo of implementing this reform is much faster than it was envisaged. And again, we're talking about this reform kind of iceberg. You can compare with that. There are a lot of things, there are a lot of reforms which are not provided for directly in the agreement, but without which implementation of this agreement will be impossible. When the European Union started the process of admission or negotiation about admission of the Central Eastern European countries, they came up with the white book, so-called. One of the block is the basic reforms, and the second block implementation of this respective directive. And they said that before we can implement the European directives in the banking business, first of all, the country has to set up the commercial banks for them to exist and to create a market. In Ukraine, situation is very often similar to that, but not from point of view of creating, but to bringing something in all of that to order. For example, we're talking about financial and banking sectors in Ukraine, and this reform will open the way towards the European banking regulation system, and in those things which take place today, we are talking about the changes and modifications or transformations. They provide the basis for more comprehensive approachment towards more comprehensive and more complicated or complex legislation in Europe. Sometimes we do not have the feedback, and all those reforms which have been implemented. They create the foundation for the more calm and technical implementation of creation of those conditions which are required by the association agreement. Okay, maybe you have some questions of that point or some at this point of time, maybe some specific topic which is of interest to you. Are there any questions? Please introduce yourselves. The newspaper day, will you please tell me, you were talking about Ukrainian trade, how it would be affected, as the Russian mass media say, Ukraine will not have any access to the Black Sea. Well, I already mentioned logistics. First of all, today, with the exception of the annexed territory of the Crimea, illegally annexed territory of the Crimea, all our ports function in full measure, including the port of Mariupol, the port of Odessa and Lysychansk. There are no threats. Today, at least such threats do not exist. Plus, as I mentioned before, there are a lot of those who elaborate on the law to change the logistics in order to avoid some risks associated with the illegal occupation or conducting the ITO operation. Speaking in principle, we can talk about some kind of difficulties, logistical difficulties faced by different companies and enterprises, but otherwise, if you're talking about the export gates of Ukraine, they are not blocked. More questions? I have a question, Taras. If I understand you correctly, the Ukrainian enterprises are very active. They are very much interested to get access to small European markets. Is this trend actually what the state has to do in order to popularize this specific link, the specific sector of business? On the contrary, I would like to be here not so much a popularizer as the eyewitness of this work. The interest toward the trade with the European Union is immense, is huge. I participated myself in, I attended some of the workshops in Kharkiv, Zaporizhzhia, Dnipropetrovsk, Lviv, Vinnytsia, Frankivsk, Kherson, Kalaev, Odessa. Everywhere there is a lot of representatives in different sectors of the economy. We are talking, just to give specific examples, let's say the barriers, the furniture, doors, different equipment, even those LED equipment. We're talking about the lighting fixtures, whatever, and the different enterprises from companies from different spheres. Not only they take special interest, they have specific proposals how to optimize something, how to establish contacts, how to obtain cheaper way necessary documents. In fact, to me, this is the best recognition of the fact that that agreement was badly needed, that many people of not real big time industrial scale, they are working. This market for them is very attractive. And of course, the people in the European Union are richer, and we can sell our products bigger prices. Of course, they're more demanding, speaking about the quality of the products. But those who understood the attractiveness of the European Union market, the bureaucratic hindrances and barriers are no barriers at all to them. We have to talk about one problem, which should be emphasized. And thank you that you brought me to that issue, to that topic. I'm talking about the animal husbandry, milk and meat products, dairy products and meat products, because we have here a very specific situation. Because on one hand, because the access to the market of that produce depends pretty much on the reform and control, veterinary center control and provision of the food products in Ukraine. In the respective basic law was adopted last year. That was a big success of all involved business, the authorities, experts, and reps of the European Union. Though today 9 months already elapsed from that date. This law has not been introduced. There is no chairman of this specific body. Yesterday, during the meeting between the business and the government, the Prime Minister raised the issue that we have almost the scandal situation that in 3 months from now, before September 20th this year, we can have the situation when the law will not be completely introduced and we'll have to postpone its coming into force. And the Prime Minister actually assumed or admitted his mistake in this issue. And next week they're going to address that issue during the governmental meeting, and Ukraine will return to that and draw the attention to this specific issue to close the access for the European Union to the sector as well, because we are talking about the issues of control over the quality of the dairy and meat products. This can affect not only the export to the European Union from Ukraine, but generally the export from Ukraine to other markets. In all other spheres, indeed, legal and bureaucratic regulations are no hindrances. This is more issue associated with marketing, the access to the customers, and more pertaining to the trade with the European Union are not associated with legal issues or associated with more with classic business models, etc. Again, speaking about the safety of food products, we hope that if government will consider that issue next Wednesday, we will be able to talk more specifically next time here in this center. If there are no more questions, thank you very much and see you again.